this is a potential kind of crazy scenario, which seems very unlikely until, it could only be a matter of hours till it actually comes up. Some Democrats are talking about the possibility of a, quote, compromise candidate. So let's go ahead and put this one up there on the screen. Ro Khanna was one of the first to say, he said, quote, I would consider the right Republican someone I could trust, like Brian Fitzpatrick, Mike Gallagher, who actually spoke eloquently on the floor, David Joyce, but there needs to be two conditions. One, you cannot have the debt ceiling, the debate, or the shutdown as something that takes the country hostage. Two, there would have to be some agreement on subpoena power, but I'm open to a Republican who could work to put the interests of the American people first. AOC also sounded kind of a similar vein. Let's go to the next one there. She says that McCarthy would not be a unity candidate, but she was not going to rule out working with Republicans to resolve the speaker battle. And Democrats would need more concessions than things just like committee ratios. Quote, but I mean, hey, if we could get some chairs. And she said it would be a combination of things, including possibly the debt ceiling. Why I think that all of this matters is that you have a situation here where Democrats, both these progressive members, but also even some centrist types, let's throw the next one up there, are all basically proposing different ways in which they could have either a rescue of Kevin McCarthy with concessions that they would have, or they could try and get a centrist type Republican who is either, not particularly well known in the caucus, but would be willing to work with the other side. This opens up all sorts of interesting possibilities. It also reminds us of one of those long talked about things kind of on Twitter and in political nerd circles, but which has never happened before. The Speaker of the House does not have to be a member of the House of Representatives. So one of the things that's being thrown out there is possibly having a retiring member of the House of Representatives, Fred Upton, as a sort of consensus choice. Lauren Boebert actually indicated on Fox News last night that she might go ahead and nominate Donald Trump in order to be the Speaker of the House. So that could be the protest candidate for the group of 20 or the group of 5 or whomever it is that's going to be on the first ballot. This opens up negotiations and putting things in a completely different way that really does bring us back to what we previously talked about, that 1855 period of 133 ballots, 2 months in which the House was not actually able to be sworn in because so many negotiations were happening behind the scenes, and eventually somebody was picked. It all remains to be seen as to what that would look like. But I think that we're only a couple of days away from actually trying to get a very different compromise solution. And this could be kind of the first tip of the iceberg of what that would look like.
It would be wild. Just so you know that this isn't totally a crazy idea, this actually just happened in the Pennsylvania State House. So
yes.
Here's what happened. Republicans in Congress are feuding. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, there was a fight for control of the state house. Democrats technically won more state house seats by just one seat, in theory making it 102 to 101. But one of the Democratic state representatives actually died in October, a month before the election. So now you've got it 101-101. And what they ended up doing is coming up with this consensus pick. And that person is actually technically going to maintain an independent status, but they effectively, the more moderate Republicans and more moderate Democrats got together and they came up with this consensus pick. So it's not crazy. Like, things like this have happened in other situations in the past. Now, I am skeptical that this is going to be how it goes down here in Congress, just because the partisan divisions are so incredibly hard and fast. If you're Kevin McCarthy and you're making a deal with AOC or any other Democrat, you can imagine the way you're going to be demonized by the more MAGA or hard right sort of Tea Party type Republicans. But, if you're Democrats, you're thinking about, all right, what would it be worth it for us to do to rescue the Republicans and pull them out of their impasse here? I think, in my opinion, it's less likely that they would want to really rescue Kevin McCarthy. They would be more likely to look for a different separate candidate that they could get the Fred Upton path rather than the rescuing Kevin McCarthy path. But the fact that you have rumblings of this and talk means that it is theoretically possible, especially as the Republicans kind of continue to beat their head against a wall with no progress. So I think if you see another day of 20 people in lockstep voting against Kevin McCarthy and things at like a total standstill in terms of any sort of progress, then I think something more unusual like this potential deal become a somewhat more likely outcome.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And while we're on the subject of crazy stuff, there's also some talk of potentially nuking the rule that you need to have a majority in order to win the speakership, and trying to go instead for a plurality. Now, why would that be a problem? Because right now, the person who is winning pluralities is Hakeem Jeffries. It is not Kevin McCarthy. So it could end up in a situation where they try to basically change the rules for a plurality type vote, or through absentees and strategic absences and all of that. But they could backdoor themselves into a very precarious situation where Hakeem Jeffries himself could end up becoming the speaker in some sort of crazy floor fight. It does not seem likely that that would be the case, just because so many of the people who are against Kevin McCarthy would not likely assent to the plurality rule change. But the longer this goes on, a lot of Democrats have a lot of leverage here if the holdouts on the Republican side continue to go. So, look, it's all about something's got to give. I do kind of want to bring it back, though, to what we were saying earlier. At this point, if I'm Kevin McCarthy, why do you even want to be speaker when you would deal with one of the most raucous houses in over a century, where somebody can call a vote of no confidence on you any second of the day? It's like the people's house is already crazy. So why would you even want to be in a situation where you are probably the weakest, speaker? Literally one of the weakest speakers in American history at this point. I don't even know why it would possibly be worth it. But, for these resume climber types, I guess it's all the title.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been dreaming about this one for a long time. You recall, I mean, he was up to be potentially speaker back in, 2015 or something like that?
Yes.
And he kind of blew himself up on that one because he gave up the game that the Benghazi hearings were an effort to bring down Hillary Clinton's favorabilities. And, it was kind of a different time in politics where things like that would make a difference. I think at this point that would be water off a duck's ass. No one would care. But at that point, it kind of revealed, it also revealed a level of sloppiness and kind of that he wasn't really up to the task at that point. And so he got pushed aside, and then you end up with Paul Ryan. The saga of Republican speakers over on that side has been fraught with drama for a while now. And that's why I think this is, another thing that's interesting about this is the Republicans have had raucous majorities ever since the Tea Party era. And so in some ways, this is new and different, and it has a MAGA anti-establishment flavor to it, but it also has a throwback Tea Party era flavor to it. And as I was saying, a lot of the concessions are more in that like hard right libertarian economic vein of, we want a balanced budget amendment. We want to, default on the debt. We want to shut down the government. We want to have these key positions on the appropriation and change the appropriations process so that we don't pass such large spending bills anymore. It has a lot of those vibes as well, injected and infused with the new MAGA flavor too. So very hard to see. I mean, usually in Washington, there isn't real drama. Everything is resolved behind the scenes in these closed door negotiations, and the American people don't really get to see it. So personally, I enjoy having this all kind of out in the open, having the American people be able to process, who they agree with, who they don't, how they want these processes to unfold, rather than it all being done behind the scenes. And then the last thing you have to say about this is, this is the identical situation that the squad was in last time around when Democrats had a very narrow majority in the House. There was pressure on them to do something with their numbers to get their own concessions, whether that was key committee positions or whether it was certain votes on the floor of the House. And they have completely taken a different tack. And I think we see now, with the level of concessions that this group has already been able to extract from McCarthy, that and the way that the squad has been completely sidelined in the Democratic Party, that was clearly the wrong approach. They thought they could play an inside game. They thought that would be the way to ultimately pursue and achieve their policy objectives, and it just has not ultimately been the case. So in terms of political strategy and what works, it helps to have a few sort of asshole bomb throwers like Matt Gaetz on your team.
Something I think about a lot is the 48 Laws of Power. It's a great book if people haven't read it. One of my favorite ones is called Create Compelling Spectacles. You can't deny this is a compelling spectacle. I mean, the entire country is tuned in to this. I have normal people messaging me, but who do you think is going to get the speakership? I mean, since when do people care about such
The process,
arcane rules?
yeah.
But it can't be glued away. And so this is, look, I'm not saying I even agree with some of the aims here about, nuking the debt ceiling or whatever, but as a tactic, it clearly, from the level of media attention, the capture of attention, this would be a way to elevate message. So for the dissidents who are real dissidents out there, I guess take note.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.